Hello and welcome to the 12th episode of the Final Fantasy FXN podcast. I'm your host, David Turner, and I'm joined by co-host Katya.
Hey.
As well, we are joined by Josh.
FXN or whatever.
FXN? Josh, where's your energy?
I left it at work.
Okay, well, our outline for this episode is we'll be starting off with our news segment. We have one very interesting news we're going to be talking about. And it's going to involve a little bit of role-playing, so that should be pretty fun. And then we'll move on to our questions segment. We have about 3 questions to talk about. And then we'll move on to our feature discussion where we will talk about Final Fantasy X as a retrospective. And before we get started, I just have a quick shout out. A friend of Val, who's a podcast editor and also moderator on the forums, started up a new Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn website called Final Fantasy XIV Rebirth. And according to them, Final Fantasy XIV Rebirth is a new project dedicated to Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn. Their goal is to provide unique, original Final Fantasy XIV content, including articles, remixes, artwork, guides, and interactive features, and more. And they are also looking for staff, so you can go and check that out and maybe you want to join up. And if you're a first-time listener, the Final Fantasy FXN podcast is a monthly podcast presented by the Final Fantasy FXN network. You can subscribe to us on the iTunes Store, the Miro podcast directory, YouTube, and of course, finalfantasy-fxn.net. So we'll start things off with our news segment. And our first piece of news is Yoshinori Kitase and Motomu Toriyama interview about Final Fantasy X and X-2 Remaster, and Lightning Returns Final Fantasy XIII. So the first point about Final Fantasy X and X-2 is that the development team really immersed into the remaster of the games last year. The reason behind the remaster is to allow a wider audience to play the games. Those who don't own a PlayStation 2 or an older version of the PlayStation 3 can now enjoy the remaster on any PlayStation 3 system and the PlayStation Vita.
Didn't they announce it much earlier than last year?
They announced it at TGS like 2011.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like everybody was wondering, why is it taking so long? And I guess that's their answer. They didn't get started.
I have a feeling they only announced it for PlayStation Vita, so it would get some hype. And now, ironically, they're only showing PS3 version and nothing is certain about PlayStation Vita version.
It's a vote of confidence.
Yeah, must be going great for them.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, actually, wasn't it the first trailer that they showed? Not really the first trailer, but the first actual footage of Final Fantasy X, the remastered version. They actually showed it running on the Vita.
Yeah, they had the
So at
character
least there was
models on
that.
it.
Yeah, it was the character models. So, I don't know. At least there's that.
Yay.
And so the development team would like to add more features to the Vita version, such as touch functionality, but no solid confirmation at this moment. For me, other than maybe user interface stuff, I can't see any use for touch. Like maybe in battle you could click the guy you want to attack. That would be useful, I think.
I think it's just very distracting because, when you hold and you press buttons to control it and then you have to take your fingers away from them and then you have to look at the screen and point at something.
Yeah.
It's just very distracting.
It might be like useful for some people.
Yeah, could be. But when I was playing Little Big Planet and they added those kind of things, it was very distracting, so I would rather not have it.
Okay. Well, you probably wouldn't have to use it.
I hope so.
And then the original version of the gameplay remains the same. No words on significant changes in the user interface and music at the moment. But actually a later interview mentioned that about 60 of the game's tracks will end up getting rearranged. So that's pretty nice because I always like updated music as long as they don't change like the actual music itself.
From what I believe, they're just recording it with live instruments.
Yeah.
Because I did similar thing for Kingdom Hearts 1.5 HD.
It's going to be so nice to hear Otherworld remastered.
I don't know if they're gonna. I mean that one was already like a actual live recording, so.
Well, I can hope.
Maybe they'll get like some hardcore death metal band.
Yep.
Like maybe they'll get Cannibal Corpse in there and just have them go at it. That would be amazing.
That'd be pretty cool.
And it's good that the gameplay of the game has pretty much remained the same, because actually I really liked the gameplay in Final Fantasy X.
I think I've seen some pictures where user interface looked a bit different.
Maybe just to make it work better on HD screens.
Yeah, I think so. Because a lot of people comparing the new one to Final Fantasy IV iOS version.
Mm.
And before it looked more colorful.
Oh, I see. So the two remasters are based on the international version in Japanese. So I guess that means the voicing will be in Japanese?
I think they would have to re-record it for English release. There's no way they're gonna release a game here with half English, half Japanese.
Yeah, but kind of the weird thing is it's the next point mentions that the dubbing is finished for the bonus 30-minute additional content. So what exactly does that mean?
They announced a little 30-minute extra dialogue at the end of Final Fantasy X. So I guess they finished dubbing that.
So they actually grabbed the original voice actors?
It'd be pretty cool if they did.
I'm guessing?
Yeah, or somebody who sounds like them.
James Arnold Taylor is just going to do all the voices from now on.
Yeah. Stay away from the summoner. All right, so that's it for our Final Fantasy X and X-2 remaster news, and we'll move on to the Lightning Returns Final Fantasy XIII news in that same interview. The same music composers that made the soundtrack for Final Fantasy XIII is back for the third and last installment. The melodies are created to resonate with the four continents of Nova Crystallia. The original soundtrack will be announced later. So I guess that's good, although I think we already knew that.
Yeah,
I think so.
Old piece of news.
Yeah, but I mean that's still good to just reaffirm that, because the soundtrack will at least have some sort of consistency to it, even though the second one sounded completely different.
Yeah, it did.
But so far it sounds like similar to 13-2 based on the trailers.
Right.
I'm really hoping we get Crazy Chocobo Part 2.
I wouldn't mind it.
It'd be a good chuckle.
Yeah. And then in terms of gameplay, the temporal aspects of the game, 13-day doomsday clock, is a determining factor. All gameplay elements are linked to this concept. The active time battle system is now faster and more action-oriented. So this is one of the gameplay aspects which has kind of created a bit of controversy, I think, because a lot of people aren't really too sure if they're going to like the 13-day doomsday clock, because they're going to feel rushed or stuff like that. So hopefully that ends up being a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably going to be rushed because they wanted to replay the game multiple times.
Yeah.
So I think the day limit might play into that.
It really sounds like they're making the game around the fact that you will be playing it multiple times. Probably on a New Game Plus type mode.
I'd assume so. Starting over from scratch every time would be the most annoying thing in the world.
Yeah.
I hope there is New Game Plus.
And then, in a similar note, the developers are aware that the time limit can be stressful for players, but they say that there are ways to maximize the clock up to 13 days instead of the original 7 days. Players need to be wise. Some quests have strict time limit. This is to motivate players to do their best.
And the time limit on a quest make it sound like a lot of the stuff is going to be missable, and I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, it's kind of the most annoying thing when you're going for trophies.
Yeah.
Yep.
You miss one, and then you have to play it again, but then you miss another one, and then you have to play it again.
Yes, and this is not the game I want to replay.
I mean, with the Last of Us, I missed so many trophies, but I was happy to play that game again, because it was amazing.
Don't spoil it.
Yeah.
I'm still at the very beginning.
Oh.
Still don't own it.
Oh, that's such a good one.
I need to pick it up.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
Every gamer in the entire world needs to play that game. Even if you hate third-person shooters, which I'm pretty sure Katya does not like.
Yeah.
Isn't that right? Yeah.
I really don't like them.
Yeah, so Katya is playing a third-person shooter because this game has an unbelievable story. Probably the best I've ever seen.
But I stopped playing once the shooting started.
We'll just play it on easy.
I was playing on easy.
Oh, okay.
Oh dear.
Okay. Anyways,
Don't judge.
This next point I find, I don't know, concerning. I don't know, we'll see. The 2011 movie In Time, which stars Justin Timberlake and Amanda Seyfried, was one source of inspiration for this game. Okay, so that, I don't know. That's kind of equivalent to them saying, yeah, we were inspired by Call of Duty with making Final Fantasy XIII. So, I don't know. What do you guys think of that? I've never seen the movie myself. Maybe it was actually awesome, but
It was just okay. I've seen it a while
I
ago.
heard it's just decent.
Yeah.
But there's not much to it, I thought.
Yeah, I think Square Enix needs to get new fortune tellers and inspirations.
They should just fire Toriyama.
The new CEO's got a new fortune teller.
He actually has a fortune teller?
I have no idea.
You making it up?
I'm just making it up.
Good, that's slight relief.
Gonna travel to Okinawa every summer
Yeah.
and discuss the business plans with some secret fortune teller.
And use large amounts of company money to pay the fortune teller.
Yep.
All right. There are going to be no more sequels after Lightning Returns Final Fantasy XIII, since this game will complete the 13 saga.
That's news I've
Yay!
heard all week.
I don't believe their lies.
Yeah, well, I think I think this actually will be the last game in the 13 saga, but I can guarantee you we're going to be seeing lightning all over the place.
We already see it all over the place.
Every single Square Enix or Final Fantasy game from now on will probably have lightning in there somewhere.
I feel really bad because she might show up in Kingdom Hearts 3, and I'm not sure I want that.
I can guarantee you she's going to be in Kingdom Hearts 3.
I don't want that, David. Don't talk to me like that.
There'll probably be a dedicated level called Lightning Returns 2.
Wasn't she in Birth by Sleep, or I'm imagining things?
She wasn't in Birth by Sleep.
And she was in Dissidia 2.
Yeah, actually it's called Duodecim.
Whatever.
Also technically a prequel, the first Dissidia.
The game actually had a story?
Duodecim did.
Oh.
I suppose kind of did.
We always joked on the old podcast about, they were saying, like, yeah, it has, like, twice as much dialogue as Crisis Core, and, like, it didn't.
Maybe you feel like you're including all the battle dialogue.
Well, that's probably what they're talking
There
about.
was dialogue, but most of it was nonsense.
Yeah, exactly.
Or it was, like, repeated from story to story.
Yeah, and Cloud is like, oh yeah, I hate my life, I need to kill myself.
They'll scream Sephiroth a couple times and call it a story.
Yeah. Alright, so Caius Ballad, the main antagonist of Final Fantasy XIII 2, will return.
He was alright.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I don't know who the guy is, so. Call me a noob.
It's also confirmed Van Niel and Fang are returning not too long ago.
That's
Yep.
right, yeah.
Because Fang was in that E3 trailer thing. That wasn't a real trailer, it was like a gameplay thing.
Yeah, but Van Niel is something they revealed recently, I think.
Yeah.
And Katase and Toriyama are interested in making other outfits from previous Final Fantasy characters for Lightning. So far we have Cloud, and...
I think Yuna as well.
That's right, and Yuna.
I'd imagine we're going to see Squall.
Probably.
There was Miquot from Fortune.
It actually wasn't the other way around, because they actually have Lightning in 14 as well.
No, but they have Miquot outfit and Lightning returns.
Oh, okay.
If you see the picture where she looks like a hooker, like bending down, yeah, that's the outfit.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay. That explains stuff. Yeah, who else do you think we might be seeing? I think an Orin one would be kind of cool.
Noctis.
Noctis? Yeah.
That might be a cool
I wish.
I'm sure they'll have that one.
Maybe Kane.
Kane.
4.
Oh, I could see that.
Be pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, that would be a good
Hide
one.
her face so you don't have to see her.
Yeah. And that would be a costume that actually makes sense.
Yep.
Since you have all this armor, which actually does something. Alright, so trophies are easier to obtain in this game. I actually don't like that.
I question that there's so many time limits on quests and so much stuff easy to miss.
Yeah, but maybe the game's so short. Like, maybe the game is only, like...
Maybe the game's only an hour. We only have to suffer for that long.
Well, maybe it's like 10
It's
hours.
impossible.
but
They did say it's gonna take at least an hour to beat one day, so... And if there are 13 days...
Yeah, so probably maybe 15 hours at the most, let's say.
Because you can increase time.
That would be one
Yeah,
playthrough.
Unless you can rewind time or something, or you can go back to those quests.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a maximized playthrough, a 100% playthrough would probably take like 15 hours.
Maybe. But I think the game will be expected that you play it more than once, so even if there are missable trophies, it won't be so bad since you won't have to play through like 40 hours just to get to that one point.
But I really hate it when they make trophies where you have to replay the game more than once.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun to experience something one time, but then when you have to replay the same thing over and over, it's I lose interest.
And the thing about games with easy trophies is I find like a lot of games that people know are not going to sell super well, they make the trophies super easy so people only buy it just to get the trophies. And the fact that they're pointing this out, I think they're trying to maybe make those people want to get the game.
Could be.
I don't know. That's why I don't really like that point too much. And, I'm actually proud of my Final Fantasy XIII Platinum because all that farming I did, it actually made it seem worth it.
It was so pointless. It took me 1 month to farm everything that I need.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think it's worth it.
I'd rather spend playing something else.
Yeah.
Like The Last of Us?
No.
What?
Like Shin Megami Tensei 4.
Or what about
How
Ni
is
no
that, by the
Kuni?
way?
Oh, that was amazing.
All right, so the last point is, lastly, Toriyama asserted this: lightning is different, attractive, and will be massively appreciated by all fans.
Nope.
No.
Yeah, and I think we'll get to that in their next news point here.
No.
Okay, so this next news topic is going to be slightly disturbing, especially since we're going to be doing some role-playing.
Oh.
So, this news is entitled Important Details About Lightning's Bust in Lightning Returns. Alright, so we're going to do some role-playing. I am going to be the person asking the questions, as well as Moto Toriyama, and maybe I'll stick in a Japanese accent in there to differentiate the two. And I believe Katya wanted to be Suzuki, the slightly less creepy guy. And I should point out that Suzuki is the designer of the game, and Toriyama, of course, is the director. And then Josh will be Nobuhiro Goto, which is the character modeling designer. I bet he had a lot of fun with this job. And so he's the super creepy guy, and that's going to be Josh.
Yay.
So let's start this role-playing. Is it true you said that you wanted Lightning-san's size from a C cup to a D cup?
Toriyama-san said, I want it bigger, so...
What a cop-out. Terrible Japanese accent.
I think mine was worse, don't worry. Yes, it was enlarged.
Was it a C cup until now? Does it even jiggle this time?
Yes!
It's determined by clothing, like the so-called corrective underwear.
There is an unreleased costume that exposes the C scar on your chest. Please think carefully, is there any other information that should be disclosed?
So there were costumes that were rejected.
I think there were a few designs that were rejected.
If reproducing the outfit proves to be difficult, then I'll consult with artwork designer as much as possible. But if the costume design slows down to a crawl, it gets scrapped.
I heard that the chest jiggles.
Yes, her chest jiggles. Since everyone can decide what costume she'll wear, you can make sure it does. By the way, since Lightning swings her arms when you change her weapon in the menu screen, that's a recommended action for surefire jiggling. To see it even better, it could be useful to equip a small shield. Look forward to it.
End scene.
Oh my god, that was awful.
Oh my god, I want a facepalm.
I just wanted to point out that Josh, your Japanese/Russian accent sounded very good. Yeah, you sounded very Russian when you said that.
Yeah, like it started Japanese and then just morphed to Russian, so I'm like, I'm just gonna stop this now.
Yeah. And mine sounded British, I think. So.
I have no idea.
Okay, so
I imagine Val is just going to destroy us in that segment.
So let's discuss this a little bit here.
Let's not.
Yeah.
Skip.
I agree with Josh.
Yeah, I'd rather not discuss this too much, but just in general, like, what do you guys think about this? Like,
it's really creepy.
And stupid and pointless?
I'm just reading it is embarrassing. And they're just going around and laughing about it.
I know. It's so immature. It's just like, I thought the industry had gone beyond this.
Not Toriyama-san.
And this Goto guy, which I've never actually heard of.
Never. I'm sure there's a reason for that.
When I first read this, I was actually thinking it was Toriyama saying all that creepy stuff, but actually he wasn't. Although I'm pretty sure it was his idea.
And they kind of both too.
Yeah.
God.
But I mean, like, this is the most pointless news ever. I mean, they totally didn't have to do this.
But technically it was, I think, a Q&A session, and some fan asked about it, as I decided to reply.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're asked it, I guess you kind of have to answer.
But they could have said no comment or something.
Yeah.
But don't get all creepy and get happy about the question.
I know. And, like, look forward to it. Yeah. Please be excited.
I guess it's another thing that talks about the quality of the game, is it trying to get people to buy it because of her boobs.
Yeah, and they'll probably put that stupid costume of her on the cover of the game with her, like, as you pointed out, her like looking like a hooker.
Well, maybe not on the front, but on the back I can definitely see it.
Yeah, they'll probably put that. I mean, it's just embarrassing. I always feel that, like, Final Fantasy it's better, it's above this low level degrading kind of stuff.
Clearly not when Toriyama is involved.
Yeah, I mean, he did the same thing with Final Fantasy X too.
I mean, it was revealed recently that it was his idea in Final Fantasy VII to put Marlene's underwear on some grown-up male character. I forgot, was it Cloud? Which is kind of creepy.
No, it
Marlene?
it was in the there are rooms of the Honeybee Inn that were removed from the game that you can access with like a Game Genie or whatever.
Oh.
And like one of the items in the area is Marlene's underwear.
Really?
Yeah.
And it was his idea, so...
Yeah.
He was like this from the beginning.
What a creepy guy.
Is that like, I'm entirely sure about the culture over there, but is that like more accepted, being that creepy over there, or is it just...
You know, I think it probably is, to be honest. I think they're actually quite open about this sort of stuff. Like, if you look at some of the games, like Dead or Alive, I mean, they're all kind of like that. And Soul Calibur, they all have this kind of, like, just look at Ivy or Taki.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And pretty much any female character in Dead or Alive, so...
But I don't think this is the right series to be
I know,
like
it's
this.
it's not the right series. Like, those are fighting games, and I don't know, it kind of just, that's kind of just the way that the games have evolved into. But Final Fantasy has never been like this. The point that they're making it such a big deal out of it. So I think it's just bad.
Hopefully it's gonna be over once this game is released.
Hopefully this will be the last time.
Hopefully
This will be the last game Toriyama directs.
Yeah, they need to reduce his role to bringing in coffee for Nomura or something.
Yeah.
That'd be good for him.
Although he might taint the coffee and put some like opium in it or something. And,
Why would you go with opium?
I don't know. I don't know drugs.
Oh man. This is just wrong.
And then he'll be able to hypnotize Nomura and put creepy thoughts into his mind.
And all of a sudden Nomura is going to see a fortune teller.
Then you're gonna see naked Noctis.
Okay, so enough of that discussion. Our next news is Square Enix trademarks a World of the Versus Epic. Square Enix have trademarked a World of the Versus Epic, which is the tagline that appears at the end of Final Fantasy XV E3 trailer. Tetsuya Nomura has previously shown interest in the interviews during E3 to potentially expand the universe of this game by creating other projects that take place within it. This trademark shows that they are serious about the idea, and the tagline can potentially be used for the future sequels of this game. So, I can't remember if we talked about in the previous podcast, but we definitely had a very popular thread on the forums about preconceived sequels for Final Fantasy XV. And I think most people are in agreement that that's a mistake. What do you guys think?
It depends how Final Fantasy is going to end up like, and also depends if those sequels influence Final Fantasy XV itself. I mean, if they're gonna now end it on some cliffhanger because they want to cut off the content and transfer to the next game instead of making a full game, I think that would be a problem. You
know, the only way that I think this could work is if the game does feel complete
but open,
yeah, like okay, that story arc completed, but there's still so much more that can be told. That's really the only way that I could see this working.
Yeah, and if they have this in mind from the beginning, it's going to turn out better than what they did with 13.
Yeah.
Because they just decide that later, like, oh, I guess we'll make another one.
Yeah, that could be.
I'm not sure about that, because they had the idea about it when they started doing 13 too, and then you got a cliffhanger ending, and now you have Lightning Creature, which looks like a mess, and
I have faith in
it depends how they go about it. Well, for example, if they were to make a sequel that takes place maybe at a different time but in the same universe with different characters and doing something separate but not completely related to what was going on in 15, I think that would be better.
Right. So I think that's it for our news. So we'll move straight along to our questions segment. Our first question is by Zenith. Sony has mentioned that the PlayStation 4 is a developer-friendly console. On this note, how long do you think the development of Final Fantasy XV would take since its reveal at E3 2013? And do you think the game's port to the Xbox One would be an easy thing to do by the developers? Katya, what do you think?
I mean, hopefully in the best case scenarios, I would finish it by the end of 2014. but it is Square Enix, and they like to screw up and slow down and delay things. So maybe it's not gonna work out as well. And then the trailer that they showed before, a lot of it was still using PS3 assets, and they showed interest about redoing the game in Luminous engine. And if they're gonna restart it again and redo everything, who knows how long that's gonna take. So, I don't know.
My guess is that it's currently running on the Luminous engine, but it's largely using PS3 assets. That would be my guess. So, what about the Xbox One?
I mean, I don't think the difference is as big as there was between 360 and PS3, where they had a lot of difficulty transferring between the two, but I mean, it depends. It sounds like they're making it for Sony consoles right now, and I'm more worried about if the game is gonna get delayed because later they decide to port it for Xbox and
Xbox.
And yeah.
And Josh, what do you think?
I think development's probably going to take 1.5 to 2 years from what we've seen. It's just kind of the most logical time frame. And as far as the porting to the Xbox One, since they're running on kind of the same infrastructure, I don't think it'll be too bad. Because like the problem with PS3 to 360 was the memory on the 360, right?
And that was, I think, the biggest factor. And also the cell.
Yeah, and that's not really an issue anymore.
No.
So.
Oh, and actually, for a game like Final Fantasy XIII, also the disc capacity.
Yeah, remember that all 3 discs of the Xbox 360.
Yeah, and the crazy compressed cutscenes. So those 3 things were the biggest things. Since
the Xbox One's using Blu-ray discs, and
they're both using
memory's
Blu-ray.
not an issue.
No,
the infrastructure is really similar.
Well, we don't think memory will be an issue.
We don't think.
I guess
unless they have the same amounts, but.
Yeah, the port won't. I don't think the port's going to be an issue this time around.
I don't think so. I think it'll be actually they'll be identical in every way.
I mean, when both consoles come out, we'll see based on what other companies are doing with multi-platform games,
right?
And what is the difference between?
Yeah, we'll be able to see a lot of other games before 15. We'll probably get a pretty good idea.
Yeah, it's usually very telling how it's going to be.
Yeah, and I think I kind of agree with Katya about when the game is probably going to come out. Like, I'd say end 2014 might be a good bet, but maybe it'll extend into the beginning of 2015. But we have to remember that they've been developing this game for a long time, so I think they have like the story and the design of everything that's done. That's set in stone pretty much, and they just have to put everything together in the new engine. So and probably redo a lot of the assets. So I don't expect that's going to take like 4 years to do.
It depends, I think, how much teams are going to dedicate to it. I mean, if they could remake Final Fantasy XIV in about 2 years, and they could make a new game too, I think. But they have to actually put people to work first.
That's right, and not have Tetsuya Nomura sneaking up on other projects. Getting called up. All right, so our next question is by Lyro1000, who, by the way, is now a news reporter, so... Congratulations. Do you think the future of Final Fantasies will use the power of the cloud to enhance the games in any way? Josh, what do you think?
I think this whole cloud thing is kind of a fad.
Yeah, it is.
Kind of like how the television stuff is not that, was popular when Netflix first hit consoles, but now it's just kind of an afterthought. People are still trying to push it. So I don't really see it going too far, so... No.
Yeah, I think Microsoft is really trying to make it seem like you can do anything with the cloud. Like, render some of the things in the game, the lighting and stuff like that, on the cloud, which, it's true to some extent, but, I mean, you're not going to be able to do too many things on there. And in terms of how Final Fantasy will use it, again, I can't see it being used for much more than just, storage purposes. So... I don't know. I don't think it's actually going to do anything.
Yeah, I think it's complete BS to begin with. I think they need to master the actual tools to make the game good first before they try to use something as advanced as the power of the cloud, which I don't really think is really anything other than just words to begin with. And
companies like this like to say oh yeah, it's all being run on the cloud, but that's all just a marketing thing.
I think they only use it so they would have an excuse for always online, but it's the same with Sims 3. They said they need the power of the cloud to build the towns, and then somebody made a mod where you can play the whole game offline.
That's right, yeah.
It's complete nonsense, I think.
Yeah, it really is. Alright, so our last question is also by Lyro1000. Do you think that the world of the Versus Epic will end up like the FNC games? So, I don't totally understand what that's trying to say, but I'm going to make a guess and say that it's kind of going to flop and not actually end up happening. And, well, I hope that is not the case, in terms of, like, 15. But, I don't know, like, if it means that other games or planned games won't actually end up well, they haven't announced anything yet, so I don't think it actually will end up being like like FNC, simply because
they just announced too much at one time.
Yeah, that was a problem with the original FNC series, that they announced those 3 games at once, and then 2 of those games ended up just abandoning FNC altogether. Although I think 15 is still kind of tied in with that, with like the crystals and stuff like that. But I don't think that will be the case this time. And Katya, what do you think?
It's hard to say right now. We haven't really seen Nomura make any sagas like this yet, unless you consider Kingdom Hearts.
Kingdom Hearts.
But
I always
that
count
didn't
Kingdom
turn out
Hearts.
too well, I think. Considering
Sure it
we're
did.
still waiting for Kingdom Hearts 3 and we have all those pointless spin-offs.
I think Josh would argue the pointless aspect.
There's only one that's pointless, and that's Coded.
Most of them are pointless
That was
for
a cell
me.
phone game.
So,
There were great story aspects to be had in 358 over 2 days.
yes, everyone is Sora, that's a major point story. But, I don't know.
And Josh, what do you think?
I think if they go forward with the World of versus Epic, it's going to be what they wanted the FNC to be. Because when they launched FNC, they announced all these titles. They trademarked a couple other ones that never were announced or anything. But with the World of versus Epic, it seems like they're going to announce things one at a time, so it won't get clustered and then fall apart.
Right.
So I think this is what they wanted FNC to be originally.
Maybe. They were just a little bit too ambitious earlier.
Yeah, and they hadn't even made anything on the PS3 before they announced this huge compilation.
I just think whether it flops or not, they're still gonna make sequels. Because if they spend so much time making new assets and creating, the whole new universe, they're going to reuse it even if it's bad.
Yeah, they're going to be using the assets of the game anyway.
That's kind of the problem of having preconceived sequels. What if the game is terrible? What do you do then?
Oh. Judging from Final Fantasy XIII 2, just keep on making more sequels.
Just keep going.
Yeah.
So I think that's about it for our questions. So if you have any questions you would like to ask us, you can go to the Final Fantasy-FXN.net forums and ask away in the questions thread. So we'll move to our feature discussion. And our discussion for this month is Final Fantasy X, a retrospective. So we're going to be just chatting away about Final Fantasy X and what we actually remember of the game, since I believe Katya played it about 10 years ago.
Something like that.
And I played it about 10 years ago. And Josh, when was the last time you played the game?
Like 3 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. So you'll be able to correct us if we make any mistakes.
Well, I just loaded up an old save file that I was trying to kill things in the monster arena. The story is probably going to be a little hazy for me.
Well, speaking of the story, I'm just going to, off the top of my head, think up a synopsis, and you guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong. So basically, the story of the game is you're this guy named Titus, who's a blitzball player, and you meet this guy named Auron, who's this legendary fighter, and there's this huge monster that comes along and just like owns everything, and this thing is called Sin, and he comes around about every 10 years or so, I think, and tries to destroy the world. And well, Titus gets sent back like 1,000 years. Oh, and by the way, there's gonna be spoilers.
When you go off like, this is the story of the game, I'm sure people are expecting spoilers.
Yeah, so you get sent back in time like 1,000 years or so. Well, you meet this summoner named Yuna, who's going to be going on this epic pilgrimage, aka suicide mission, to go and wipe out Sin. And there are many other summoners doing the same thing. And, well, the summoner Yuna and her guardians try to acquire new summons to go and become powerful enough to defeat Sin. And I don't know, you meet this guy named Seymour, who I can't remember fits into the story.
He's like a minister, like one of the four
some religious guy.
figures.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like their religious leader, I think, right? Seymour. But he ends up being a bad guy. So you end up fighting him at some point, and
like you fight him 4 different times.
yeah, things are starting to get a little bit hazy in memory. So let's see. You acquire new summons, and then you go along, and then You ride the shoe puff, and then and then you walk across the calm lands, and then what happens after that?
You climb Mount Gagazet, which is Kamari's home.
That's right, and then you listen to the cool music.
Yeah, it was a really good track on that mountain.
Yeah, and then
then you do one of the hardest boss fights in the game.
Unalesca?
Just before that, you have to fight Seymour for the third time,
okay.
where he turns all your party members into a zombie and then full heals you.
Oh, I thought that was Unalesca.
She does that too.
Yeah, so I think at that point you're in Zanarkand.
Yeah, after Gagazet, you're in Zanarkand.
Yeah, so this whole, the game basically starts in Zanarkand because they're all at this campfire, and then it kind of ends that way too.
Nah, not really.
Well, you end in Zanarkand, and that's like the last bit of the game.
There's a lot left.
Okay. And then I think, and then you find out Sin is actually your old man.
Yep, main character's dad.
How did that happen? I forgot.
Because when
you defeat Sin,
Summoner,
I think you become Sin, right?
Your final Aeon becomes Sin. The final, when you go into the pilgrimage, one of your guardians becomes your final summon, and when you use it, it's the only thing strong enough to defeat Sin. And when you use it to defeat Sin, your final summon becomes the new Sin.
Yeah.
So
I think that's right.
It would trap people. It would be a continuous cycle of it. And Yuna's father, Vraska, Titus's father, Jet, was a guardian for him, and Jet became Vraska's final summon and became Sin after they defeated him.
Okay, you lost me about halfway through, but okay.
Yeah. So then, at the final battle, I probably skipped ahead.
You skipped the last dungeon where you had to you skip this whole 10 boss gauntlet where you have to defeat different parts of Sin and jump on his back and kill the core.
Yeah.
And then you fly into his mouth.
That's it. Yeah, you fly into his mouth, and then that's the final dungeon. And I thought the final dungeon was pretty lame, actually.
It's like a water platform you gotta go around.
But in the final battle, you fight a bunch of Aeons, I think, and you fight Yu Yevon.
One of the lamest final battles.
Yeah.
Because I was so excited because I thought the final boss was Jet in his Aeon form.
And you hear the Otherworld theme.
Yeah, it was such cool. I'm like, yes, this is it. This is at the end of the game. I beat him. And it's like, oh, now you gotta kill all your summons. Okay. And it was super easy, too, because I never used half of them.
Mm-hmm. But, that's basically the end of the game. And then you find out that, Titus is actually not real. He's a dream.
You actually find that out on Gagazet when you're climbing the mountain.
Do you? Oh, okay.
Yeah, you halfway through the mountain and they stop, and there's this waterfall where the Faith are, and Yuna talks to them or something.
Oh.
And they reveal that Titus is a dream.
I definitely don't remember that.
And the Zanarkand that he was from was a created Zanarkand.
I really didn't like that point of the story.
It was a very dramatic plot twist, guys. It was very crucial to the story.
It made me feel like everything is pointless, and Titus is pointless, and the whole game is pointless.
So, overall, what did you guys think about the story of the game?
I liked it a lot.
Yeah?
It's one of my favorites. And the whole Titus, love story side plot was actually very well done.
I did not like the story. I mean, I thought it was too simple and too straightforward, and then the twist with Titus. I mean, the only good thing about it is the ending where he disappears. But, I don't know, that gets ruined too soon.
It's supposed to be an emotional story.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way, actually. I mean, the first time I played the game, I'll admit, I really enjoyed the story. But I think once I played it a second time, I really saw how weak the story was. I just don't feel it was as good as some of the other ones, especially 7, 8, and 9. Those are my 3 favorite stories. And I think a lot of that has to do with the characters as well. They're really only Titus, Yuna, and Auron who were interesting in my opinion. Maybe Lulu a little bit.
But Waka was voiced by Bender from Futurama.
Yeah, I guess that was kind of cool.
And Kamari, too.
Yeah, that's true. But Kamari didn't say very much.
No.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, the story was okay, but I think it could have been a lot better. A lot of it just seemed tacked on and cheesy, actually. A lot of it was very cheesy.
Yeah, I certainly did not shed any tears over the ending.
Well, I thought the ending was very good. In fact, it was, I think, maybe the second best ending, just behind 8, because 8's ending was amazing. But, it also had an excellent intro with the Blitzball match and the Otherworld theme going, and then Auron comes on
city.
riding Sin and, looking
I like the beginning.
He's stands on top of a building. Doesn't he, just jump off this giant building onto, a highway or something?
Something like that, and you starts, owning.
I think that may be why partly I didn't like the story as much, because it starts in this advanced city and then it turns back into, medieval-ish, or I don't know how to call the setting.
But tribal?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not really a fan of those.
There was no Advanced City. It was all a dream.
Oh, and that's true.
Well, there actually wasn't.
Yeah,
in Advanced City, it was the one you see is the dream version.
Yeah, and so what about the characters of the game? Like, let's see, we have Tidus, Riku, Waka, Lulu, Yuna, Auron, and Kamari. Did I forget anyone there?
Those are all the party members.
Yeah. What were you guys' favorite characters in terms of the story? And then what about your favorite characters in terms of, like, battles and gameplay?
Tidus was my favorite all around.
All around?
All around.
Yeah, for me, Tidus was actually the weakest character for story. Well, maybe not the weakest. I think Riku and Waka and maybe Kamari were the weakest.
I think Kamari was the least important in the story because Riku had the whole Al Bhed subplot.
Yeah.
And Waka was like instrumental to helping Tidus adapt to the world that he got transported to.
A lot of people don't like Kamari, but I thought he was pretty cool.
He's pretty cool, but in terms of story, he's just not that prevalent.
Yeah,
I don't like Furies in general in any game, so...
You don't like what?
Furies, animal characters that trying to be like people.
You don't like that?
No.
You didn't like Kate Sith?
No.
But he was a robot.
You didn't like Red 13?
Nope.
Gasp. Okay, Katya, that was quite a blasphemous statement.
I don't know if we can be friends anymore.
Well, you're gonna have to deal with it.
Deal with it.
But yeah, other than that, I didn't like any of the characters in this game also, so...
Yeah, for me, my favorite character in terms of the story was definitely Auron, because he was just awesome. He was the coolest.
Oh, yeah.
He had, like, the best voice actor, and I think he was the most realist. Like, he was the only one who wasn't, like, childish and, like, stupid. I guess Yuna wasn't
wasn't
stupid.
very childish.
Huh? Who was?
Lulu wasn't.
Oh, that's true. Lulu wasn't. Oh, yeah. No, Lulu was actually very... serious character. And her little sub-story, like when you go into that cave, because your previous summoner died, and she failed, like, at the Calm Lands. That was actually a really well done side story.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. You do hear bits and pieces about that throughout the story. I think even, like, right at the beginning of the game, you hear stuff about it, and then, again, later, you hear more. But that's when you actually discover the entire story about that. And you're right, that was very good. So Auron and Lulu were probably the best in terms of the story, followed probably by Yuna. Of course, Yuna actually is sort of the main character of the game, if you ignore Tidus. Because actually the whole story, the reason why the story is actually happening is because you're following Yuna on her pilgrimage. And my favorite character of battle, definitely Auron, because he's like a epic samurai. Yeah.
I hated his overdrive, memorizing all those buttons.
Yeah?
Because when I was a kid, I wasn't fast enough to just read and then input, so I just had to memorize all the combos, basically.
Oh, so in other words, you were a noob.
I was 6 when this game came out.
Oh,
okay.
Okay. That's understandable. And then, actually, I would say Kamari was my second favorite in terms of the battle.
He was kind of like a blue mage.
Yeah, exactly. He was essentially a blue mage, because... And the way his sphere grid worked, you could basically be any type of character you wanted, so that was kind of cool.
Yep.
Of course, any character could be at some point. Like, I basically filled Yuna's grid, and she'd just walk up to a guy and go, ding, and do, like, 99,000 damage on the guy, so...
That was always fun.
Yeah. And, well, related to the characters, what about the voice acting?
Oh, I thought it was a top-notch performance, 10 out of 10 all around.
Yeah, the laughing scene was amazing.
Yeah.
That's my favorite scene of the whole game, actually.
It definitely is. Yeah.
I don't know. It ranged from okay to bad.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
I honestly don't remember much about voice acting, but I don't know, at that time it didn't feel too bad, but I wonder how I'll feel now when I replay it.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the issue. When you first play it, it sounds fine, because that was like one of the first games that had full voice
I
acting.
haven't really played any games with voice acting before
all the way
that one.
Yeah, like it was one of the first. It was the first Final Fantasy main game.
Yeah.
I don't even think there were any sub games which had voice acting. Mm-hmm. Maybe the little Chocobo racing game did.
It didn't have no, it didn't. It just had works and cues and all that good stuff. And
so you look at the back of the case of the game and it says voice acting.
Yeah, it does actually.
So that was a big deal back then.
And it sounded really good, but then when I play it now, and the voices don't match the lips, and then the voices sound off from what they're supposed to, it's the emotion they're supposed to convey.
Yeah,
it just kind of it falls apart now. It doesn't hold up.
Mm-hmm. But it was our first attempt, and I guess you have to start somewhere.
It definitely wasn't bad for the time.
Well, I don't know. I think it's even actually bad for the time. because PS1, for example, Metal Gear Solid 1, that game had excellent voice acting. Probably some of the best voice acting even today.
I'm sorry we can't all be Metal Gear, David.
Well, I don't care, but that game stands up even to today's standards in terms of basically everything, but the voice acting in the game, like, it was top notch.
Yeah, I remember reading comments back in the day about Final Fantasy X voice acting. I don't think a lot of people were too happy with it, although I didn't really get it at the time.
Sounds fine to me.
Well, you were only 6.
Yeah, it's true. Can't argue that.
Yeah, and so what about the music in the game? I think this is probably my favorite part, or at least tied with my favorite part of the game, because the music was actually really good. Very
well done.
Very emotional.
One of my favorite soundtracks.
Yeah,
Probably the only thing I really like about the game.
To me, the game had a very emotional and mature soundtrack, actually. You just listen to Xanarkand.
Yeah.
You just get chills every time you listen to that.
I do.
And,
yeah, it never gets old listening to it.
Yeah, you can listen to it 1,000 times. And then you get like the complete opposite of that with Otherworld, and somehow it's still amazing. Although I'm not sure if my sister really enjoyed it too much, but... and then like just kind of the more standard stuff you get these other great themes like the Besaid Island theme. That's a really good one.
I really enjoyed the battle theme too.
You know, that one I actually did not enjoy as much.
I really liked it.
I got tired of it very fast. Dun 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 dun.
Yeah, I feel the same as David.
I really like the trumpet. Like, I don't know, I like the style.
It was actually the trumpets that I think started getting on my nerves.
Really?
Yeah.
You know, like the fanfare-ish kind of vibe to it?
No, I don't know. It wasn't my favorite battle theme.
It's not my favorite, but I really enjoyed it.
But like the majority of the soundtrack was extremely good. And actually, what's kind of unique about the game is it was done by I think 3 different composers. I think Uematsu did maybe about half of it. I think he collaborated with the other 2 for a lot of them. Was it Hamashi or Hazumashi? Hamazu, yeah. I think he did a lot of them. I think he did some of the battle themes. The final battle music I really liked against Yu Yevon. I love that track. It was this crazy piano theme going on.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, so I mean overall, I really like the music.
I don't think there's a track from the game that I don't like. I don't think there's one that I didn't enjoy.
And when I first heard Suteki Dane, or however you pronounce it, I didn't really like it too much because the singing was kind of weird, but you know, the more I listened to it, actually, it's again so emotional. Like,
yeah, I used to really like that one back in the day.
Especially when you first, like the first few notes that you hear, it's just really, like it really gets to you actually. So, I mean, very powerful soundtrack to this game.
Definitely.
Unfortunately, the voice acting kind of like it's such a serious story, maybe even one of the most serious stories of them all. But the voice acting kind of killed the seriousness.
Maybe they should add an option to turn it off.
You know, it's not just the voice acting's fault, because I think some of the actual script was kind of weak. And I think for me, that's one of the reasons why the story ended up being weak. Because if you think about it, the story was actually pretty good, but it was poorly executed. I think that's the biggest problem with the story, is that it was just not executed as well as it could have been. And then the gameplay. You know what? I think 10 had my favorite gameplay system until 12 came along.
I think 10 is my favorite gameplay system.
Yeah?
Being able to scroll through every turn for like the next 50
I know, I love that. You can just plan everything ahead.
Of course, when I was 6, I just mashed the attack button with everybody, but now I really understand it, and I like it a lot.
And it was actually absolutely crucial when you were fighting like some of the monsters of the battle arena.
Yeah, it was.
What's the ultimate one called again?
I want to say Nemesis.
Nemesis, that's right? The one, yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Right.
I remember I had Titus.
If you used an overdrive, he would instant kill your entire party.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed the battle theme. Although, I don't know, it got kind of weird when you go back to like Besaid and you basically have every single attack for the next 50. So, I mean, it doesn't really scale too well in terms of if you go back to old areas, the enemies basically don't attack. But if you play a game like Final Fantasy VII or some of the more traditional ATB systems, there's a random possibility that they will get the first attack because it's just kind of randomized. But in this one, it's all set in stone. Like it's all determined by your speed statistics and stuff like that. There's virtually no randomization. Like even if the enemy got a preemptive strike, you'd still get the first hit.
Yeah, I didn't really. When you went back to older areas, like to capture stuff for the monster arena, it didn't really feel right.
So it was maybe the only kind of annoying thing about it, but it was very minor. Like overall, I really enjoyed the gameplay for the battle. You know, even the summons were actually well done, because like the newer games don't have. I find that they don't do the summons as well as they could, and
summons haven't felt important since 10.
Yeah, 10 actually they were crucial to the story even.
Yep.
So yeah, it might even have the best summon system of them all. Like you can control them, and they actually felt useful. Like the newer ones, you can control them, but they don't feel useful at all. Well, 13, yeah, they're still not really that useful in 13.
They're only useful for grinding.
Yeah, for grinding. That's about it. So, Katya, what did you think of the gameplay?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's my favorite out of them all, but I've enjoyed it for the most part. I really like how they let you switch characters during battle, and you can use everyone.
Oh,
if
yeah.
you feel like.
Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting.
That's a good way of leveling characters, too.
Yeah.
Like, if there's one that's really falling behind, you just stick them in there for, like, one turn, and then get them out of there, and then they get all the experience.
Yeah. But I think for the most part it made the game a bit too easy, how it was set up. Like, basically before the boss, you can get your overdrive and your summons ready and just go hit them and they're done. And I think that made the game way too easy.
I don't know, but by the end of the game, if you were still doing that, it made it was a little hard because they would start wiping you out, because using like summons and stuff took some of your turns away.
I don't know, I did it from start to end and I didn't have any problem.
About the time of the Unalesca fight is when it stopped being the optimal strategy.
Yeah, I think by that time I over-leveled, so it didn't really matter.
Part of it as well. You know, when I was 6, okay, I didn't understand the leveling.
Oh,
I think I made it through like probably Luca before I discovered there was a sphere grid.
Yeah, you know, think about the sphere grid. When they first showed that tutorial, I'm like, okay, this looks pretty simple. And then they and then they pull, like, that was just when we saw like first circle, right?
Yep.
And then they pull out and like zoom out and they show the entire thing. Like, what? This thing's huge. How am I ever going to learn this thing? And it ended up being pretty simple.
Yep. You just got to map out where you want to go.
Yeah, almost all the characters, it's like you just follow one singular path.
And then you reach the end of theirs and you got a choice of whose path you want to go to next.
Yeah, that's where it gets a little bit more strategic.
Yep.
But
it's about like 3/4 way through the game you get to that point? Or no, is it
I
halfway?
can't remember. But
might be around the Seymour fight, the first Seymour fight, after you get Shiva.
Oh, those Seymour fights they were frustrating. And one of the most frustrating things is that you couldn't skip like half the cutscenes.
I know.
So I'd see the
same.
They
watch him go through his evil dialogue a billion times. I love the first fight with Seymour. Yuna had just gotten Shiva, and they didn't tell you that. Mm-hmm. You just you pulled Yuna out. It's like, all right, I get to use her for the first time in a billion years. I'm gonna summon, and you see question mark, and it's Shiva. And I was like, all right, it's pretty cool. I think I'll use this one.
Yeah, I think it was the first fight that was the hardest.
The third one was way harder.
Yeah, I don't remember all of them.
Yeah,
I think
it was the one on the side of the mountain.
The last one, oh yeah, the mountain. Yeah, the last one I think was probably the easiest.
It really was.
I think you fight him in
the second one and the last one were pretty easy.
But it was also one of the coolest battle themes in the entire game. The Seymour battle, the final one, that was pretty awesome. And the Black Mages did their version of it, and yeah, that was pretty good. So I believe the current release date for Final Fantasy X is slated for this year, but there's no release date at all yet. But I believe it's supposed to be this year, or at least in Japan, maybe.
Yeah, the
although
supposed to be.
I would think they would release them all around the same time, since there's not really any localization that needs to be done this time, since it's already been done.
I mean, they talk about this game freely at all the events on all different regions, so I don't think they're gonna delay release between regions too much if it happens.
We'll probably hear a set-in-stone release date at TGS, and it'll probably be like November.
There's also
December.
Gamescom this month, so maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they'll say it then, though. Square Enix, do they usually make much of a presence there?
I think they have a lineup. They announced lineup for it recently. I don't remember if it's there.
Yeah, they announced the lineup, and I'm pretty sure 10HD is on there.
Well, then maybe
it's there,
we'll hear it. But
90% sure.
I still think TGS would be the time to have the release date.
But they don't have much time left, so they have to hurry up and do it sometime soon.
They need to do it this year. It'd be a mistake to have it done next year, unless they also decide to make it for the PS4, which would be really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, what benefit would... Well, actually, it might be downloadable. Like, maybe you can play it download it to your PS4 as a...
Well, don't most HD collections show up on the PlayStation Store a couple months after they come out?
I think so, but but for the PS4...
Well, it's the same PSN store, isn't it?
Yeah, but it wouldn't be compatible. But they could make it compatible. All right, so I think that pretty much does it for our Final Fantasy X discussion. That does it for our podcast. So you can find us on the iTunes Store, the Miro Podcast Directory, YouTube on our Final Fantasy FXN channel, and of course, FinalFantasy-FXN.net. And we actually have a bit of a schedule change for the podcast. First of all, we're not going to be having a podcast next month. We're going to be just taking that month off, and it's kind of the end of our first season, you could say, since we've now actually been podcasting for at least a year now. It's actually been 13 episodes if you count the episode 0, but this is our official episode 12. So that's quite the milestone. We've now been doing this for a year. I don't even think most podcasts get past a few episodes, so I think we're doing pretty good.
Yeah, so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a fun ride. Glad it's going to keep going.
Yeah. So with the schedule change, instead of releasing on the second week of the month, we're actually going to be releasing the first week of the month. So hopefully that'll make things a little bit easier to release. And so that means our next episode will be the first week of October. And also, hopefully we'll do a little bit of special stuff, considering it's our anniversary. We were going to be doing some of that stuff this episode, but it didn't end up happening. But with this break, hopefully we'll be able to plan some things out and make it the greatest episode ever. Stick in some bloopers and...
I'm sure it'll just see if I sneeze looped 40 times.
Yeah. I'm thinking there'll be a thing where we hear me say the word like a million times.
Maybe Val will release all that unedited bad jokes that got
I'm
cut.
hoping they do.
I hope he kept them.
The world ends with you. It was like one of the worst things I've ever done in my life.
I don't remember that one.
That was like the first episode I was on. I made a world ends with you joke, and you guys just like didn't get it.
We made it.
And
was a joke.
The conversation stopped. It was so bad.
Yeah. So anyways, we can look forward to that. That should be pretty fun. And so for now, I guess we'll just say bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, and see you in October.